All right. All right, it's 5 o'clock. We'll call the November 8th, 2022 Administration Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Chair Cook,
Present.
Vice President Counter. Vice
Vice
Chair
Chair.
Counter.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here.
All right, Supervisor Long,
Present.
Supervisor Burney,
Here.
and I don't see Supervisor Fiedler,
No.
but we still have quorum.
All right, thank you. Next item is approval of the minutes from Tuesday, October 11th. Do you have any changes to the minutes? No? Look good? All right, the minutes will stand. Public comment. It looks pretty empty in here, but is there any public comment? Any public comment? Any public comment? All right, no public comment. We'll move on to the business items. First item, financial report for October 2022. Aaliyah.
I will say this month of financial reports were quite difficult just because it's so close to the end of the month and the time these had to be created. So I am looking forward to moving the meeting to the third week just for that point. But otherwise, everything is on target. We do expect to come in under budget for all of the different departments here. If you'll go to I think the tax one is next. Everything is good there. Sales tax remains high, just under $1 million this time. So we're still above what was budgeted. I don't have the rules. They're not moving. And then the KIP report, everything is good there. We're starting to close out some of those projects, hopefully to get more of those closed out this year, at the end of the year. And then for the ARPA report, that's just, we did file the quarterly report in October here, so everything is up to par through the end of September. Our next one will be due in January, but everything on there is looking good so far. Are there any questions?
Any questions by anybody? No? Okay. All right, thank you. Move on to our next item, consideration of reclassification request of an AODA supervisor to behavior health supervisor. Audrey.
Okay. So HHS has lost a couple supervisors recently, and so that has provided them the opportunity to kind of rearrange how their departments look, who's being supervised by who, and how the departments kind of fit in. So who is going to be managing CCS and CSP, and what department are they going to fall under? So that has allowed them then to request, I think last month we approved another behavioral health supervisor change from one of the supervisor positions that left. So same thing this time, just the need for additional clinical supervision and administrative supervision, and so they are requesting the change into a behavioral health supervisor. That position requires a master's degree in different supervisory licenses, which they kind of need basically to be able to, that's a state requirement that they have to have certain licenses depending on the number of people that the individual is supervising, and right now they're a little short based on some of that transition that has happened. So this one is more of a need than a want.
And if I'm reading this right, the switch will also allow us to do more billing with Medicaid, right? So
Right.
that billing will cover the costs to the
Yes.
county?
Yep.
Okay, any questions? Supervisor Counter.
Just to start out, most of all the acronyms you have the name of, but the AODA at the beginning didn't have a definition of what that stands for.
Shar, you might have to help me out. I believe it's alcohol and other drug addictions. Okay.
All right, any other questions? Someone want to make a motion? All right, Supervisor Long. Second Supervisor Counter. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, our next item, consideration of reclassification request, 1 FTE from case manager social worker to lead social worker. And we're back to Audrey again.
And kind of the same situation here, right there, having an opportunity to be able to kind of reorganize right now, and the thought of a lead social worker, based on the number of supervisors they have, they thought that this would be a good learning opportunity as well as just an opportunity to provide some additional supervision to some of their social workers.
Okay. Supervisor Long.
Real quick question, a little off topic, but is there any particular reason that we saw several people leaving? Maybe it was a good thing, you know.
It was for multiple different reasons, so just kind of all happened to be at the same time.
Other questions? I think it's great when we can create a scenario where we have, people have an opportunity to advance in their career and go to some next career ladder. And I believe this also won't really be an additional cost to the
Right.
county budget,
Cost
right?
neutral, yeah.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve. Second by Supervisor Long. Any other discussion?
Can the chair make the motion?
Yes, at a committee, yes.
All right. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right. And item 4, resolution amending personnel policies and procedures handbook.
And salary administration policy, you may sound familiar because we just changed this one and approved it a couple months ago, but it did have language regarding the long-term sick bank in there, and since we updated, the county board approved the long-term sick bank policy change last month, which means now we have to go through and change any policies that kind of relate or have any old language regarding the long-term sick bank. So that is, the only updates to this is just that change so that the policy now matches what the long-term sick bank policy states.
Make a motion to approve the resolution amending personnel policies and procedures handbook.
All right. Motion by Burning, second by Supervisor Long. Any other discussion?
Wait a
And I'm
minute.
gonna make a- Did you get that? Did you guys hear that?
We did, they just won't hear it.
Just, okay, wait one second, I have that we were doing separation of employment policy. That one is not, that was in the wrong pile on my desk. Sorry. We will start this one over.
Okay.
We did make a couple
I need to withdraw my
changes.
motion.
No, you just wait for the better explanation.
Yeah, one that actually pertains to salary administration.
So I'll
Sorry.
withdraw my motion until the explanation is there.
Okay, so, future agenda item, we will look at separation of employment. Salary administration policy, so we needed to just make some clarification. We did have, just based on a lot of questions coming through on annual step increases, who is eligible for them and who isn't. And we get a lot of questions based on performance reviews then. Does that, if I don't have satisfactory performance on my performance review, am I still eligible for that annual step increase? So it just kind of spells out all the expectations and qualifications in order for you to receive that annual step increase. And then also updated, we kind of defined promotions. So previously, promotions and transfers were kind of under one, so we pulled those apart, and then we created two different promotion factors. One, you could be promoted into an open requisition, so you apply against other candidates, you receive the job as an internal candidate, and how then that wage is determined. So we would treat it just like any other open requisition where this hiring manager does submits a wage request. We look at your experience, length of service, education components, and make the wage determination just like we would if you were an external candidate. For promotions that are more of a career progression, current practice right now has been that if you move from, let's say, an office associate 1 to an office associate 2, right, that should be a good thing. We want people to stay. That's why we make those promotion opportunities available. Currently, the wage on that, you would move to the next corresponding step that would give you an increase. So a lot of times that could be, I've seen it as low as 8 cents. You know, where it's kind of backfiring on us to say, wow, right, I got a promotion, I'm taking on that additional responsibility, I've learned all these extra skills, and I'm getting 15 cents or 20 cents, you know. So what we'd like to do is grant the employee an approximate 5% increase in those cases. So not really treating it like we would an open requisition where we can kind of negotiate the wages, but at least to have something in place to give them an incentive to move up more than what it is right now anyway. And then transfers, we didn't really change the language on that at all. We just pulled them out since they're kind of defined separately. Any questions on that?
Supervisor Cowner.
So an employee that's put on a performance improvement plan, if, I was trying to, I didn't get a chance to, I just looked at the overview portion of it, but are they then not, they're not at all eligible for the entire year then until the following year? If they're put on a performance improvement plan? Or after they've made the steps that are required, then are they eligible for the step? Or how does that work on an
Yes.
annual basis?
So performance improvement plans are typically going to be 3 months or less. As far as kind of working on a plan for improvement, they're not going to usually be more than that. And then if the board approved a step while you were on a performance improvement plan, you wouldn't receive that step until you passed your performance improvement plan. So typically, it might be a month or two after that January 1st date. If there was no board-approved step increase, so if you had your performance improvement plan from July through September, it'd be paid neutral, right? There was no increase that would have happened during that time that you missed out on. But yeah, it would kind of be treated like an introductory period in that facet, that if you're on your introductory period, you have to wait until you've passed that introductory period to get that step increase.
Any other questions? Do you want to,
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution amending the Personnel Policies and Procedures Handbook.
okay. Motion by Burning, second, okay, second by Counter. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Aye, opposed? None, motion carried, thank you. And our final business item, consideration of services review. We have human resources and information technology. So I'm not sure who's going to go first. I'm hearing Audrey thinks John should go first. And here he comes, he's coming up. Thank you, John.
Good evening, everybody. As you can see on the sheet that we submitted for our mandated services, most of this stuff is optional. They're not mandated. The one mandated service that we provide for the county is we are the custodian for records for email and text messaging. The other services are mainly provided to all the other departments. We maintain the infrastructure for IT. We maintain connectivity, networking between all the buildings. And without the IT stuff that we provide, they really wouldn't be able to do their job. So even though it's not mandated, it is necessary. And that's pretty much it.
As you mentioned, it's kind of an interesting, piece of the mandated service. Like, it's not mandated, but it's essential for mandated services that
It
we
is,
provide
'cause-
as a county.
Yeah, because there's other departments that are mandated to provide their services, and they're dependent upon the IT that we provide to them, so.
Yeah, makes
it's,
sense.
Necessary evil, I guess, is a good way of putting it. So.
Better than that. All right, any questions for John? No?
Okay.
All right, thanks,
Thank you
John.
all.
All right, Audrey, HR.
Ditto. Any questions? There is an opportunity, right, that some organizations may even outsource their HR departments. I will say in an organization with 700 and some employees, that would be a very difficult and expensive task to do versus those that maybe have 10 or less employees. They don't need a full HR department and can outsource some of that. So I think we're a highly utilized department for mandated services. Some of those, whether it's Wisconsin statute or federal law, having a unionized staff, having to go through labor relations, also following all the health insurance laws through the ACA requirements, including tax filing at the end of the year through that, and supplying 1095Cs to employees, which is a mandated federal law. Administration of the Fair Labor Standards Act, or the FLSA, and the affirmative action planning, ADA requirements, FMLA requirements. Those are all federal laws that need to be followed, as well as we are the custodian of personnel records. A couple services that I maybe kind of pointed out. One is the ACA forms that we are required to file at the end of every year. Right now, Oracle does have the capabilities of doing that as an in-house service. Oracle is our HRIS system that we use. But by the time, just manually, that we would print everything, order the specific envelopes, stamp everything, to use an outside service is just more realistic. It's actually cheaper to do it that way. One other cost-saving area that I could see, right now we use another organization to do our affirmative action planning, and they charge around $5,000 a year to do that. And we probably don't really talk about affirmative action a whole lot, right? We get the book, everybody looks at it once a year, that we could maybe do a better job at, looking at that and talking to supervisors about it, making sure that we're making a asserted effort to improve our areas where we're lacking. But that I have built affirmative action plans in the past. It is a task that you can learn how to do. So if we chose to do that in-house, right, we'd be spending wages. We'd need to send somebody to training, that it can be performed in-house versus out-of-house. So any questions?
Supervisor Long.
So I had a question on, let's see if I can read this. Coordination, administration, employee benefits. You had this as number 7 in your priority, just if that's easier to identify.
Yep.
So are these other vendors that we're working with, the $200,000 cost? And if there are other vendors, how, do we take a look at that periodically and look at other possibilities, or I'm just kind of curious to get a little more explanation on that item.
Right, and that's, okay, the supplemental programs expense. So the wellness program on its own, right now we do a $300 wellness benefit that we are looking at changing for 2024. That right there is a $100,000 cost that's paid out to employees, so that's just it's a reimbursement. So if you spend up to $300 a year on health and wellness initiatives, so whether that is gym memberships or kids athletic programs, things like that, membership fees, they can request reimbursement of up to $300 per family. That usually ties out at about $100,000. And so the other $100,000 is split between our EAP vendor, is around $26,000 a year. We are heavily looking, EAP is Employee Assistance Program. It's through Real Living. So coaching services, training, they provide training to like our all staff and our supervisors. It provides counseling services for employees. There are other EAP services out there that are free that come with some of our other, so our vision provider provides one, our life insurance provider provides one. We went with a paid service since before my time, but so we are looking at that. It does provide a lot more services than what the free ones do. It's just trying to get to determine, is it a good return on our investment, right? Yeah, we just talked to the leadership team about that and really training them on how to use the service to make sure that they all know what's out there and available to them, so that we can take a better look at that for 2024 to see, right, if it's something that we should be, that's worth our cost. It's a pretty high price tag on that one, so.
I think the main one is the broker. So we have a broker that we use. We did change brokers about 3 or 4 years ago to JA Counter out of New Richmond from Willis Towers Watson, who we used for decades before then. So we did change our brokers, and then the broker bids out, not every year, but every few years, all of the other sub-services that we do. So we've changed dental, we've changed a couple of other ones. We will be changing health insurance, just because of consolidations and buyout in that industry. We'll be changing who does our health insurance administration, so.
So, yeah, on Ken's point, usually every 3 years, we take everything out to market to make sure that we're working with the vendors that provide the best service and pricing.
So you're on top of this, so.
Yep, so,
Yeah.
long answer short.
Okay, and that's great.
We do shop
That's
around.
exactly what I
Yep.
wanted to know, because I thought, well, is this an item that might be worth diving into a little bit?
Right.
But it sounds like you're already diving periodically, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Are you still looking?
Okay, just on the wage classification, so we do that study, 20,000 every 3 years?
Yeah.
Can you give us a little more background on that, just to?
So I believe in the past, they only allowed supervisors to do reclass or regrades each budget cycle, right, at the end of every year. And so right now, we're doing those on kind of a monthly basis so that the HR department is looking at trying to make sure that all of the positions are graded appropriately kind of on an annual basis, but it is there's 200 and some different positions. And so for the HR department to take that on, it's just, we wouldn't have the capability to do that, so we have to outsource it. And really just to make sure that we're on par with market, right? That we're not overpaying some positions, underpaying others. And really throughout the year, we can kind of get a good grasp so that when we do these studies, we can say, these are the positions we really want to look at because, right now we're struggling CNAs and PCAs, or healthcare campus, sorry, initials again, right? So to have somebody do all 200 and some positions at once, just to make sure that we're fair and on par with what the market is paying everyone.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right, that is all of our business items. Any requests for future agenda items from anybody? No? Announcements and correspondence?
I just want to welcome Taylor Mavis. He's the interim facilities director. So,
Welcome, Taylor. Okay. All right, our date of our next meeting at this point is December 13th. Depending on what the agenda looks like, we may or may not hold that meeting. We'll stay tuned for that. And then, as Leah, I think, referenced the reminder in January, we're moving to the third Tuesday. So that'll be a switch for everybody. All right, 5:24, it gives everyone time to, if anyone's watching and hasn't voted yet, it gives you a few hours to still get there. So we are adjourned.